On the coldest nights of the ancient world, long before thermostats, furnaces, or even the idea of a house as we know it, our ancestors huddled around a fragile circle of firelight. Imagine the wind cutting across an endless ice age plain, the darkness stretching out like a living creature, and a small group of early humans pressing close to the flames, protecting the one thing that stood between them and the freezing void. For most of human history, warmth was not a comfort, it was survival. It was the difference between waking up and never waking at all. Today we take heat for granted. A switch flips, a room glows warm, and winter becomes something we watch from a window. But for more than 200,000 years, humans fought a silent and relentless battle against the cold, and the ways they kept themselves alive were far more ingenious, surprising, and creative than the simple fireplaces we imagine. Hidden inside that long journey are stories of stone warmed beside prehistoric fires, of secret wind tunnels carved into ancient walls, of Roman floors heated from beneath, of Viking houses packed with rayu moss to trap precious heat, and of inventors who, century after century, pushed humanity closer to mastering the very temperature of their world. Tonight, we will travel through that entire timeline, from the first sparks struck in a cave to the complex systems that heat our homes today. We will uncover the forgotten inventions, the quiet breakthroughs, and the brilliant minds that helped humanity conquer the cold. This is the untold story of how humans learned to create warmth, even when the world around them froze. To understand how humanity first learned to fight the cold, we have to step back into a world where winter was not a season but a force of nature. In the deep prehistoric past, long before villages or kingdoms existed, warmth itself was a rare and precious resource. Early humans gathered around fires, not simply to cook or to see in the dark, but to survive the night. Yet these ancient people were far more resourceful than the simple image of cavemen by a fire suggests. Archaeologists have found evidence that prehistoric groups heated large pieces of black basalt, placing them beside the flames until the stones glowed with stored heat. When the fire died down, they carried these stones into sleeping pits lined with hides, letting the gentle warmth radiate for hours. Some communities placed hot ash beneath a thin layer of soil to warm the ground, creating an early form of radiant flooring. And deep inside caves, they survived by choosing spots with natural wind channels, letting smoke escape through cracks in the rock while keeping precious heat trapped inside. Even the way they slept had purpose. Families wrapped themselves in giant communal coverings of fur, linking their body heat together in a single shared cocoon against the cold. As humans evolved into organized societies, the methods became more deliberate. In ancient Egypt, thick mud brick walls slowed the desert chill at night, and small clay stoves warmed private chambers without filling them with smoke. In Mesopotamia, builders designed clever flue channels that allowed heat from a lower fire to rise into the rooms above, an early form of multi-story heating. In Greece, the brazier became a household staple, a portable bowl of glowing coals carried from room to room, providing warmth with surprising efficiency. Their bathhouses even experimented with warming floors by channeling hot air beneath them, a simple but remarkable preview of what would come next. And then appeared one of the most ambitious heating systems of the ancient world, the Roman hypocausts. The Romans elevated entire floors on small pillars of stone, letting hot air rush underneath like a river of fire. Clay pipes hidden inside the walls carried heat upward, turning dining halls, villas, and bathhouses into warm sanctuaries even in the coldest months. Skilled workers tended these fires day and night, carefully controlling the burn so that the floors did not crack. With mosaics absorbing and releasing heat slowly, Roman homes glowed with a steady, luxurious warmth unknown anywhere else on earth. But after Rome fell, Europe slipped back into colder centuries. Castles relied on giant hearths that heated only the people standing closest to them. Thick tapestries hung on walls to block icy drafts, and beds were designed like wooden chambers that trapped warm air around the sleeper. In the far north, Viking longhouses used layers of rayu moss packed into walls and roofs to insulate against brutal winters. And in Japan, Families gathered around the aurori, a sunken hearth at the center of the home, often warming themselves with small cloth bundles filled with heated salt. Across thousands of years, from caves to empires to medieval halls, one truth stayed constant. Humans never stopped inventing ways to bring warmth into the cold. When we cross the threshold from the medieval world into the early days of colonial America, we enter a place where winter was not just uncomfortable, but often deadly. Homes were small, windswept, and made from timber that creaked under the pressure of blizzards rolling in from the Atlantic. Families depended on fireplaces that glowed warmly at the center of the house, but even a roaring fire could only push back so much cold. The far corners of a room often froze solid, water pails iced over inside the home, and the nights were so cold that breath turned to mist in the air. To survive, people became extraordinarily inventive. In wealthier homes, heavy bed curtains wrapped around wooden bed frames, transforming the sleeping space into a tiny insulated chamber. Brass warming pans filled with hot coals were slid between blankets to chase away the icy sheets before anyone dared climb in. Churches kept small wooden foot stoves beneath the pews, where women carried glowing embers sealed inside lidded boxes to warm their feet during long winter sermons. Soapstone blocks, capable of holding heat for hours, were left beside fires until they became almost too hot to touch, then carried into bedrooms as natural radiators. Meanwhile, frontier settlers living in log cabins stuffed the gaps between logs with a mixture of clay, mud, and rayu moss, unknowingly creating one of the most effective natural insulators ever used in North America. Yet even with all these techniques, the fireplace had limits. It required constant attention, mountains of chopped wood, and it warmed only the immediate area. The next great leap came when people began to rethink the very shape and purpose of the hearth. That transformation arrived in the 18th century, when innovators in Europe and America turned their attention to cast iron, a material heavy enough to store heat and efficient enough to burn fuel more completely. In 1741, an American inventor named Benjamin Franklin introduced what would become one of the most influential heating innovations of the era, the Franklin stove. Instead of letting most of the heat escape up the chimney, Franklin designed a metal-lined box that drew air in through one opening and funneled smoke through an angled flue. This created a powerful airflow similar to the effect later known as the Venturi principle, allowing the fire to burn hotter, cleaner, and longer. Suddenly, families could heat a room with less wood, less smoke, and far more safety. Even when the fire died down, the cast iron walls radiated warmth for hours, transforming the experience of winter nights. Across the ocean, Sir Benjamin Thompson, better known as Count Rumford, refined the fireplace itself. His tall, narrow design reflected heat into the room with surprising efficiency and carried smoke away through a reshaped throat that revolutionized ventilation. Rumford's fireplace became a blueprint for countless homes. Together, these breakthroughs marked a turning point. Fire was no longer just a flame reaching into the dark. It was becoming a tool shaped by human ingenuity, pushing us one step closer to mastering warmth itself. As the world moved into the age of industry, a quiet but revolutionary idea began to take shape. For thousands of years, humans had lived with the limitations of local heat. A fire warmed only the space around it. A stove warmed only a single room. But the great minds of the 18th and 19th centuries started asking a radical question. What if warmth could be distributed? What if a single fire could heat an entire building? It was the beginning of the dream we know today as central heating, and it marked one of the most significant turning points in humanity's long struggle against the cold. The earliest sparks of this idea appeared surprisingly early. In 1594, a visionary English writer named Hugh Platt proposed using steam to heat a greenhouse. His idea never went beyond theory, but it predicted a future no one else could yet see. More than a century later, the famed engineer James Watt, better known for perfecting the steam engine, experimented with heating his own home using steam pipes and a handmade copper radiator. Around the same time, in France, A man named Bonamain developed a hot water system for warming his plant houses, a pioneering moment in hydronic heating. Even the summer palace of Peter the Great reportedly used a primitive hot water system as early as 1710, showing that the concept of centralized warmth was circulating in different corners of the world. But it was in the early 1800s that these ideas began to solidify into working systems. In the United States, an inventor named Daniel Pettibone created what many consider the first warm air furnace for building heating. Installed at Pennsylvania Hospital, his design heated air in the basement and allowed it to rise naturally through ducts to the rooms above. Though imperfect and uneven, it proved something powerful. Warmth could move. Meanwhile, in England, engineers William Strutt and Charles Sylvester engineered systems that heated entire mills and hospitals. Their warm air furnace for the Derby Royal Infirmary in 1819 not only provided heat, but also circulated fresh air and expelled foul air through a central dome, a remarkably advanced concept for its time. By 1816, central heating had crossed fully into American architecture. Massachusetts Medical College became the first U.S. building heated from a single source. But the next leap required more than moving hot air. It required controlling hot water itself. This challenge was taken up by A.M. Perkins, whose high-pressure hot water system used narrow wrought iron pipes coiled in a furnace. Though early versions were dangerous and prone to explosions, they were astonishingly effective and inspired refinements across Europe and the United States. And then came the invention that would finally transform buildings forever, the radiator. In 1854, American inventor Stephen Gould created the first practical steam radiator with a built-in safety valve, allowing systems to operate at lower pressure with far greater reliability. A few years later, in St. Petersburg, Franz Sangalli introduced the cast-iron sectional radiator, strong, modular, elegant in its simplicity. By the late 19th century, radiators were warming apartments, classrooms, factories, and city homes from New York to London. For the first time in history, warmth no longer came from a single flame. It flowed through pipes, across floors, between walls. Humanity had taken its most decisive step toward mastering the cold. With radiators now spreading warmth through pipes and steel, the world stood on the edge of an entirely new era. But a building warmed by steam or hot water still faced one final obstacle: control. How do you prevent a room from overheating? How do you keep a steady temperature when winter shifts from mild to brutal in a single night? The answer came from a series of inventions so simple and elegant that they shaped the comfort of the modern world. In 1830, an English chemist named Andrew Urey introduced one of the earliest temperature-responsive devices, a thin strip of bonded metals that bent when heated, known today as a bimetallic thermostat. It was small, mechanical, and humble, yet it held the power to sense change. But the true breakthrough arrived in 1,885 inches Wisconsin, where a young schoolteacher named Warren Johnson grew tired of freezing mornings and sweltering afternoons in his classroom. He built a pneumatic thermostat that used rising and falling air pressure to signal a central control system. With it, a room could warm itself when it grew too cold, cool itself when it grew too hot, and finally achieve something humanity had never truly experienced before: automatic comfort. By the turn of the century, thermostats had become a badge of modernity, a symbol that a home had stepped into the future. But even the most sophisticated thermostat needed fuel. And by the early 20th century, America's energy landscape was changing quickly. Coal, which had powered furnaces for generations, began to give way to cleaner, easier alternatives. Gas pipelines expanded across cities, and in 1919, an inventor named Alice Parker patented a visionary design for a natural gas furnace that included individual ducts feeding separate rooms. Though her concept was ahead of its time, it laid the foundation for zoning systems decades later. By the 1922, oil furnaces also entered the market, allowing homeowners to heat their houses with the turn of a valve instead of hauling heavy buckets of coal. Slowly, central heating became not a luxury, but an expectation. As America moved through the 1,930 seconds and 40 seconds, another piece of the puzzle fell into place. Insulation. Walls that once leaked heat now held it tight, thanks to new materials like fiberglass, transforming the efficiency of every furnace and boiler. After World War II, a boom in home construction swept modern heating across the country. By 1960, more than half of new American homes included central heating from day one. Then came the next great leap, the merging of heating, ventilation, and cooling into a single system. Forced air furnaces shared ductwork with electric air conditioners, creating what we now call HVAC, year-round climate control, humming quietly behind the walls. And as technology advanced even further, a new idea emerged, one that didn't burn fuel at all. The heat pump, powered by electricity, could capture warmth from the outside air or even the ground and bring it indoors, reversing the process in summer to cool the home. Early models struggled with harsh winters, but modern versions can draw heat even from frigid air far below freezing. To many engineers, the heat pump is not just another heater, it is a glimpse into the future, a machine that moves warmth instead of creating it. From coal to gas, from radiators to thermostats, from furnaces to heat pumps, humanity has transformed comfort into a science. And step by step, we have learned not just to survive winter, but to shape it. When we step back and look at the entire journey, from the faint flicker of a prehistoric fire to the quiet hum of a modern heat pump, the story of human warmth becomes something much larger than technology. It becomes a testament to the stubborn, brilliant, and endlessly creative spirit of our species. Across continents and centuries, through ice ages, empires, revolutions, and modern cities, humans have pushed back against the cold, not just with invention, but with imagination. Every stone warmed beside an ancient fire, every mosaic floor glowing with Roman heat, every cast iron stove, every iron radiator, every thermostat on a humble classroom wall was a small victory in a long battle for comfort and survival. And in that long arc of history, warmth is more than temperature. It is safety. It is community. It is the glow that gathers people together when the world outside turns dark and unforgiving. The systems that heat our homes today may feel ordinary, but they are the result of thousands of years of trial and error, genius and persistence, failure and discovery. They are the quiet inheritance of everyone who came before us. So as you sit comfortably in a warm room, think for a moment about the journey behind that warmth. Which part of this story surprised you the most? Was it the ingenuity of early humans, the engineering of the Romans, the bold experiments of 19th century inventors, or the invisible sophistication of modern systems? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed exploring this long and remarkable path with me, make sure you subscribe so you never miss the next chapter. Because the story of humanity is far from finished, and the next breakthrough may already be glowing on the horizon.